It's been really interesting to watch the parallels between decentering the United States and my decentering whiteness and decentering men journey, because I find myself going through a lot of the same learning curves, for lack of a better word. Like, for instance, when I first came to France, not even moved, just came to visit, the whole train ride here, I was learning, I was trying to teach myself how to say in French, even though I didn't know how to speak a word of it. I mean, I didn't know I was moving here. I just came to visit. I moved a year later. How to say, I'm sorry, I'm American, I'm sorry for Trump, or something stupid like that. Like, I was teaching myself how to apologize for being from the United States. Now, part of that comes from this sincere desire to decenter myself as a US American, right? But when I think back at, like, you know, like, decentering men is a different thing. And that involves, like, centering myself more, because everything defaults to my patriarchal conditioning and, like, whatever. But in terms of decentering whiteness, it is very similar to that journey. Because, when I first started learning about whiteness and white supremacy culture and the true history of my ancestors, and just started to see it more and more. In the very beginning, I did that classic thing of, like, over apologizing. Like, maybe not apologizing, but having this spirit of, like, that guilt, right? That, like, oh God, and it's still centering myself and my guilt, because I just assume that everyone's mad at me for being white and being, like, affiliated with whiteness because we're so awful, blah, 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 blah. Right? And it doesn't mean we haven't been and we aren't, but it's like, it's the same thing as, like, the narcissist, when you're, like, the narcissist, like, whoever has a powerful group in an oppressive system. White Woman Whisperer talks about this all the time. It's that, like, oh, poor me, the victim. Even though I'm the oppressor, I'm the victim too of, like, what I do to you. Like, it's like when men cheat on you, and like, you're supposed to center them for feeling bad when you're the person hurt most. Like, this is what men do all the time, right? And this is what white people do, is we can't help but center ourselves, until we, like, that's the default. And we learn through doing this work longer and longer to pause and be like, wait, am I centering myself here? Okay, shut up. Take a beat. Regulate, your nervous system. Try to figure out what this is really about, because it probably has nothing to do with this person or this situation oftentimes. And not just be like ridiculously, annoyingly over apologetic in a way that is literally just dehumanizing someone else by, like, forcing them to forgive you. Just forgive me already, right? Or forgive my people, forgive my group, right? And and so what I learned in, like, my own journey with, like, relationships, there's a parallel in what I learned in these oppressive systems, right? Because I used to be the person who was just so apologetic that I realized that I was telling people I was saying I'm sorry to silence people, like, one of my old mentor, like, literally, I was running late and it really was not my fault. The subway got stuck in a tunnel in New York, and she was like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And she was like, you don't care. You just don't want me to be mad at you. And she was right. I mean, a part of me did care, but I was so consumed with my own fear of being, bad, right? Not a good girl, or someone being mad at me, that I was just like, I'm so sorry, and she was like, you were literally just saying sorry to shut me up. I know you didn't, clearly you didn't mean to be late, but it doesn't even matter, because you're centering yourself over the impact and your guilt. And so, like, we know that white people do this. We know that men do this. We know that narcissists do this. We know that, or, like, whatever. But as a US American, I still have to work on this. I don't do this anymore. I don't apologize for being from the US. Because if you go around just being like, like, people are like, because it usually gets met with, like, what? Like, do you hate yourself that much? Like it comes across as super weird. But I think one of the reasons why I do that is because I'm like overcompensating for all of the US Americans who are out, who are just like the ugly American, who are just out there like unaware of how much we center ourselves and how annoying we can be and how cut off from the rest of the world that we really are. And so we are just like unaware of how much people watch us, but we don't know about them. Right? And so I'm trying to overcorrect for that. But then that's weird too. And so I'm trying to be in this place of like, I don't hate that I'm a US American. I don't hate my country. I hate my government. I hate I hate a lot of things I hate the individualism and hypercapitalism, but I've really had to work on my relationship to my country, because in the same, if I'm hyper fixated, like I had to learn the same with my dad. Okay. I hated my dad so much for a while. And then I realized, wait a second, like my DNA is like half his. I look just like this man. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm going to see this man. If I really truly hate him, then I hate myself. Like, maybe that's not a good parallel. But it's just so weird to be trying to not be too extreme in the other way. And it's also weird because everyone knows so much about us and they also don't, right? Like for instance, I've given this example before. I'm fascinated by how much my husband knows about my country and how little I know about his. He's French. I have a history degree. Now, granted, history is unending. Like I has very specific, I studied mostly like human rights and mostly like 19th and 20th century human rights, and mostly in the US, but also some like whatever. I didn't have to, whatever. There's so much I don't know, but I am appalled by how little I know about the history in France, right? And now that I'm going for nationality, I have to know more, and it's been really good for me because I'm like, well, okay, that explains a lot. That explains a lot, right? But he doesn't know the bad stuff. Most of the bad stuff he doesn't know, just like a lot of U.S. Americans don't know. Like white people, at least. White U.S. Americans do not know our history because the Daughters of Confederacy and all this other stuff. And Moms for Liberty and the new version of that. But because of the movies and the TV shows and all that stuff, when he came to the U.S., he knew, he was like, oh my God, there's a yellow school bus. He took a photo of it and sent it to his family. I was like, what? And when I come to Europe, I'm like, oh yeah, they don't have yellow school buses. They like charter buses. Like they just do it differently here. He knows about prom. He's never had a prom. Not only does he know that word, he knows more about it than he should. He knows at graduation, we throw our caps in the air. And in fact, it was so weird the other night after our gospel choir, we go into a bar afterwards, like an outdoor terrace with everybody. And there was a group of young people who had the graduation caps on. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, yeah, we don't do that there. They're doing that like they don't do that here. They're just doing it because they know that reference so much. They wore that costume. Like, it's weird. And so what I've loved about being here, and this is one of the reasons why I came here, is because I wanted a country, because I lived in Sweden for a year a long time ago. And I was like, everyone speaks like, my roommates sounded like they're from the US, except they had a better vocabulary than me. They had a perfect American accent, but with better vocabulary. I've never felt so dumb. Oh my God. But I just remember being like, oh my God, they know every single, I was like the radio, I would hear Swedish. And, at the school I was at, I'd hear Swedish. And, out in the world, I'd hear Swedish. But every song, but I just couldn't believe how I was known so well. And I knew nothing about the other culture. It's weird. It's disturbing. And that's kind of how whiteness operates. Not kind of. That is how whiteness operates. That's how patriarchy operates. Men don't know crap about us. We know everything about them. Even when I was in Patagonia, in Argentina, working on a strawberry farm, doing the wolf thing. If you don't know what that is, it's really cool. Worldwide Organization of Organic Farmers or whatever. It's a work trade thing. That's how you can travel super cheap. A man gave me a ride on his motorcycle, and he was asking me about Breaking Bad. I was like, man, I don't even have Breaking Bad. I don't have an AMC subscription. How are you watching that? Like, for real, how are you streaming that? I'm not internet savvy enough to figure out how to stream stuff without going through the proper the pay channels or whatever. I just remember, and then when I was in Argentina, you know, that's when I realized that I got to just stop saying American. Like when I'm in the U.S., I say American, right? But outside the U.S., I say U.S. American because they got really pissed at me for saying American. And I was like, what am I though? And they're like, you're North American. I'm like, yeah, but what about Mexico and Canada? Like, and they're just like, I don't know, but like, we're all Americans. Stop saying that. And I was like, okay. Good point. You know, like, I don't know. I have just been schooled by people all over the world by how selfish I am as a U.S. American. So it's been a trip decentering myself, but trying not to do it in a way that's fucking annoying. That is just more of the same thing. And it comes down to that American exceptionalism, right? U.S. American exceptionalism, where we just like, if we're so, you know, some people like, you know, maybe more like right-leaning people will go to other countries and they just like, and you know, some of my relatives are this way. They just like they want the U.S. in another country, right? They don't. It's like no respect for that language, the culture, the way of living. Nothing. They want the U.S. in another place, but with some, you know, interesting people and stuff to look at, right? And it's that colonizer mindset, right? The colonizer is like Frankenstein come back, Frankenstein's monster, right? Like, we can do that in any country, even like the original colonizer. That's what we do. Anybody in Europe, like, that's why like they're so annoyed with us. So like, man, why are you doing this? Like, well, you kind of made us, but whatever. Anyway, it's just trying to be like, not stand out as a U.S. American, right? Not be like, look at me, hey, look at me and how great I am, or look at me in my awfulness. And that's what I've realized. That is my work to do with my ego constantly. Is like, I don't want to be like I mean, my ego wants me to be this, but I don't want this to be like the morally superior, or like the good, or the blah, 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 like the best, blah, 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 that the world revolves around. But I also don't want to be the worst, right? And I have absolutely in my life, in relationships, had this tendency to look up to people, like, you know, like it's a hierarchy and like you're better than me, or look down on people like I'm better than you, right? Like I'm morally superior to you, or I'm higher in the hierarchy somehow, or even though I didn't earn it at all. But also the flip side of that is like, oh, I'm just so awful. Oh, you know, like I'm bad. And then just take up all the space in the room. Because we know that somebody, like, you know, I'll tell you, men who have low self-esteem and, you know, who are just super insecure will make your life hell, because everything is about how bad they feel about themselves. So we could do that as a collective as well, right? And with an identity like being from like the U.S. American. So anyway, I don't know if this makes sense, but it is a trip, man. It is a trip. And thank God I have been working on it in other areas of my life, like with whiteness, being cishet, in terms of being ableist, you know, like all these things when I'm like, dang, there it is. And I'm like, okay, how do I be empathetic and thoughtful and not reinforce this hierarchy, but also not be like a narcissistic, like act narcissistic and selfish and like, I'm the worst. Oh, I'm part of the bad group, you know? Anyway, I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. The reason what made me think of this is there was a woman whose video came up on my page today, and she was like talking to everyone, but U.S. American. She was like, y'all are not American, okay? We are not, we don't vote there. They're another country. I know our world has been dominated by their algorithm, by, like we've been bombarded with their stuff for so long. And our news channels talk about them more than us. We have to decenter them and take back our own autonomy. And I don't know, there was just something really sobering from watching her video and then reading the comments, because I forget how much I know that I get a lot of content from the US, but that's on purpose. I follow first of all, it was like, oh my God, sorry, the light went out. Cecilia Regina actually helped me understand this. She said that maybe it's like I found my chosen American family on TikTok, which I have, which is why it's so cool to meet so many of my mutuals when I went back. But I know that I get US content because I'm speaking English, and because I am purposely seeking out a lot of my favorite creators in the US, but I also have I follow a lot of people from all over the world. And I follow a lot of people here in Europe too, because of the time zone, they come into my feed. But I didn't realize how much the US gets pushed into algorithms, how much influence the US has. Like I understood it, but I really didn't understand it, not as much as I thought I did, until seeing all the comments in there being like, yes, I'm so sick of it. I want to know about the news happening in my area, everything. And that is true. Like every day when I check the news here, a shocking amount of it is from the US. And I know that because of our political influence, because of our military, because of our media, because of all these things, that we do have an enormous amount of power, and we do have an enormous amount of influence. Whatever happens in the US does impact the rest of the world, which is why that last election was so important. And look what happened. That's why the rest of the world was so devastated. Just not everybody, but a lot of people, especially usually the global South is going to suffer the most from anything that happens, for anything we do. Even when we're trying to help, we're like the villain in so many people's stories. But at the same time, it was like she was just reminding people, look, you can't vote there. You're not a citizen there. At a certain point, we have to do what we got to do. We can't be as obsessed with them, even though it's a mess. And I'm having a really hard time being here in France, because my job is to be connected to the US, and also I've got 40 years of my life there. Well, maybe not quite 40, but whatever, a lot of my life there. And so I really struggle with being here because I'm so there. And part of it is because it's terrifying seeing what's happening there. And so I'm like, and I'm worried and whatever. So I'm really trying hard to be here. But anyway, it's just, it's interesting. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts, because I think this work of decentering myself, decentering whiteness and decentering USness, oh man, I don't know. This is going to take a long time. I felt like sometimes I'm like, I'm pretty far in my journey. And then something will happen. I'm like, oh my God, there it is. There it is. You got way more work to do, Melanie. Same with decentering men. I find a new way that even if I'm not centering men, I'm centering women who center men. I'm helping a man I don't even know. I'm like, what am I doing? I have better things to do. God. So anyway, it's a journey, but let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, share. Please follow my Patreon if you really like my work. You can see all kinds of travel content. I have great interviews over there, watch parties. I have meetups, personal stories, all kinds of stuff over there, and that's what pays my bills. But sometimes I do get paid okay if the algorithms are friendly. So if you want to help me with that, comment, share, boost. There's a boost button. And also just, I love the community I've built here. So please leave comments. I love when people are talking to each other and finding community within this community on my page. So anyway, let me know if you heard the comment song. Anthony's Village comment song again. There's more photos that I haven't shown you yet. Look at this parade. I have a video on Patreon of just how insane this parade is. Everyone from 5 to 15 to 25 to 35 to 45 to 54, 55, 65, 75, 85, and 95. They were all in this parade. They did whatever they wanted, including had Guinness kegs and a Titanic ship at steam, and it even went up like it was sinking, oh my god. And then they had this float, and then a bunch of other floats that didn't make any sense to me. And old ladies swinging batons, and people dressed as nuns and everything under the sun, and old people, and then they pass people over each other, cause that's what they do all the time. Follow my Patreon to see this video. Thanks for watching, have a good day.